Thank you, Aspa. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world watching this. Welcome to the session on leadership in the age of new normal. My name is Andrew, and it's my pleasure and honor to be moderating this session here at the 6th AYEC this morning. So based on research and data, I think it is safe to say that over the course of the pandemic, leadership has been put to the test. None of us knew the gravity of what was to come, and leaders had to devise immediate solutions and improvise as the pandemic unraveled. At every stage of the journey, leadership at many levels has been and continues to be a key ingredient. So at a time when we can cautiously say that the worst of the public health crisis may be behind us, this session reflecting on leadership lessons and reimagining leadership for the new normal is very timely. We have a distinguished and highly experienced panel who will share some of their personal leadership stories and thinking with us today. And I'm honored to introduce them now. Our first panelist is Emmy Dao Lan Hong, founder and executive chairwoman, Techie Holdings, Vietnam. Emmy has 20 years of experience in the IT industry as the co-founder of one of the biggest technology corporations in Vietnam. She founded Techie Technology Academy in 2017, which is a pioneer in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education company in Vietnam with 16 academies nationwide and several leading edutech platforms. She is a board member of the Vietnam Investment Club, an early-stage investment fund specializing in investing in startups. Our second panelist is Gavin Vongkusolkit, Managing Director, Heritage Estates, Thailand. Gavin founded Adlib Hotels and Glowfish co-working offices, both which continue to break new ground and challenge conventions. He serves on the board of Midpond Group, the Erawan Group, and the Food School. Gavin was part of the first class of young business owners who founded the Young Entrepreneurs Chamber under the Thai Chamber of Commerce, where he continues to support in the development of its next generation leaders. Our third panelist is Muhammad Isa Liu, head of business banking here at Baiduri Bank in Brunei. In this role, Isa oversees the banking needs of companies, including MSMEs, as well as their employees. He also plays an active role in programs designed to support and nurture local MSMEs and aspiring entrepreneurs. Isa has a strong background in management and advisory services and private equity. Our last, but certainly not the least panelist is Oknya Pekbolen, co-founder, chairman, and CEO, Westline Education Group, Cambodia. His company is currently managing the Westline Schools, the Northline School, Educational Development Institute, Apple Tree International School, and Forest Hill International School. His other business interests include hotels, library, cafes, media and public relations, and trading of education supplies. Bolen is also president of the Federation of Education Services in Cambodia and one of the founders of the first ever angel group in Cambodia, the Cambodia Investor Club. So ladies and gentlemen in the audience, we invite you to engage our panel today through the chat and Q&A buttons on your hop-in interface, and we will certainly get to your questions later in the session. So I'd like to turn now to our panel and begin with a basis of our discussion and inviting them to describe to us what their own personal definition of leadership is. So I'd like to start with you, Emmy. Please tell us what you think leadership is. Give us one key trait of a good leader and one key responsibility of a leader.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this event. And thank you, Andrew. To define the leadership, I have also mixed this question to many people, and they answer very differently. But leadership to me is someone who possesses the unique quality that motivate us and change our life in a positive way. And to me, the most important and the most keyword is growth mindset with thinking beyond limits is the most critical in especially during the COVID days today.
Thank you.
Can you
Thank
hear
you,
me?
Emmy.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. How about you, Gavin?
For me, it's simply someone who has followers. And that could be through coercion, it could be through, virtue, or many other variables. But, it could be Xi Jinping, it could be Travis Scott. It doesn't mean that one has to necessarily be good or bad. So followers for me.
Okay. Followers. Let me turn to you now, Isa. What is one key quality and one key responsibility you think a good leader should have?
I think the answer is in the question, Andrew. The key quality is responsibility. I think leaders need to make sure that they take into account, the responsibility they hold to their stakeholders of whichever project or company, and to ensure the well-being, to the best of their ability, given the resources, to provide and nurture, those that they represent and are responsible for.
Okay. Bolend, your initial thoughts on leadership?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. To me, first of all, I believe in the idea that leadership is not all about position. So it is more about influence and inspiration to create trust. So to me, the words that define leadership is about influence. And as long as you have influence on the people, they follow you, like Gavin said, actually. And then either you can be a bad guy or a good guy, as long as you have influence and inspiration to create trust. That's why if you are a good leader, make sure you have good mission as well. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so now that we've established a base for our discussion, let's fast forward, let's rather rewind into the pandemic, start of the pandemic in 2019. Can you describe to us how your businesses were impacted and the kind of measures that you put in place in response to the impact? Let's start again with you, Emmy.
So make me clarify, the question is that about how we change our business, right, to adapt with the new situation?
This is about how your businesses were affected by the pandemic.
Yeah. So first of all, I have to say that I have never experienced such different time, and I think for other business, Vietnamese business, that is the same. Like we have never seen that how our business go through such difficulty. Every day right now in Vietnam, we have over 400 business shut down every day. Fortunately, we could continue, but a lot of activities that we had to slow it down, and it cannot run as fast as we expected. For example, in the beginning of 2020, we had a plan to expand our educational business within 16 offline centers and expand it to 40 offline centers nationwide. But this plan is forced to postpone until now, and we have to wait until the post-COVID when it's more stable. And we even don't know when we could restart it again. And for the COVID, it impact our business in many different ways. And I think the two most the two big changes to us is firstly our business model, and secondly how we work together is more about the hybrid working model. And for the business model, so before 2020, our business is totally offline, and right now it transformed to online merged offline business model. We start to transform from offline to online right away when the COVID outbreak in Vietnam in February 2020, and we developed the EdTech platform to keep maintaining our business and also offering more subjects, not just the technology subject anymore. Now we offer the news offerings like math and English and other STEAM subject as well. And for the OMO business model, it saw a lot of advance to our business in dealing with the COVID. Our revenue, our sales in 2021 during the lockdown periods is 3 or 4 times higher than the times of lockdown in 2020, and the online business right now is already got the profitable and help us to cover the offline expense. And we could even reach more market in Vietnam as well based on that. So I think that is the opportunity, the positive impact of COVID that also help us to keep moving on, keep growing, even of that very bad impact to offline business. And secondly, for the hybrid working model, so right now we maintain the working model in like 50% of the employee working from home and 50 at the office, and we even changed our strategy in recruiting. Many of my employees right now is located in many different cities that we haven't had the offline presence yet, and within that decentralized organization, we could access to the more qualified SR resource like telesales or sales or even teachers to run the online business. So that is the most 2 big changes to our business recently.
Just a follow-up question. In terms of the response to your shift into the online model among your customers and the students,
yes,
what was the picture like on the other end, on the consumer side? Did they receive it well? Was it an easy transition for them as well? Or did it take some time for them to embrace the virtual model?
I think so. In Vietnam, the behavior of the customer had need more time to change, but the results of the educational market, the edtech market, is growing very fast recently. Even the result is even bigger than 20 years ago. In 20 years before. But for the parents, right now, all of our students in Vietnam haven't. Cannot go to the school yet up to now until today, and they all of them had to learn online, and the parents it's too much, say it's too much for the kids, but actually I think it's a new normal to everyone, to any parents and to any student. They have to handle and prepare for those changes and prepare like hybrid model of learning as well, like online and offline.
Yes, I was interested in that because part of in education, part of the challenges on the part of the student is the acquisition, for example, of computer equipment for their learning, access to the internet, especially in remote areas of ASEAN. So I was interested in your response to that. Let me shift now to Gavin on the same question about how his co-working space was impacted by the virus. And I understand, Gavin, you have made some very challenging decisions as well in terms of downsizing. And after you respond, I will turn to Isa and Bolen in terms of the reflections of how their leadership perspectives have changed as a result of the pandemic. But Gavin, over to you first.
Sure. I might want to focus a little bit more on the hospitality sector today. The co-working space was impacted, but we somehow managed to come out stronger through similar to Emmy. We went online and we implemented various kind of countermeasures to COVID. So we were able to do that because most of our clients have shifted from SMEs to large corporate, enterprises, and as the trend for hybrid working model becomes apparent, it's actually the large corporates that needs to kind of come up, maybe less because of our effort than because of the trend. But on the hospitality side, we have a large portfolio of hotels under the Erawan Group, and that's quite interesting because we've had to the hospitality sector. No matter how hard we try, we simply have to downsize. We have to close some of them. We have to convert some of them to state quarantine hotels, and a lot of staff have to be let go. And so, we have to shift our thinking about leadership a little bit there, because we have to kind of somehow we still look after them like families, but somehow we have to let them go, and we can't pick and choose either. We can't pick and choose the best ones. We have to simply let the one with the shortest tenure in the companies go first, because they're the one that cost the company least. So it challenges our perception of what good leadership is a little bit. We have to ask some of the staff to take pay cuts. Some still do take pay cuts because the hospitality sector is not recovered yet. So throughout all that, it's if I could say it, it's about communications. Everybody left with a smile. It's about being fair, understanding the situation clearly, and we even have some of our staff from the completely different industry, from the co-working side. They actually pay cuts as well, so we could support more people from the hospitality side. It's actually quite it's become quite a nice environment where people try their best to help each other out, even though some people may have not met before even. But at the end of the day, the company needs to survive, and that if the hotel has to close down, people have to let go. So you have to make sure that they have the best chance they can have to finding alternative employment, or go and do something else. A lot of people now, after 2 years, come back to me and said, thankfully they have found something else. They found an alternate career. It actually is not as bad as it seems at first. I mean, it seems like you're throwing a lot of people away towards an unknown, but people come out on top. People find different industries to work for. They find something else that they can generate income. So I've learned something new from that experience as well.
Yes. I'm curious, if you don't mind sharing. So in terms of, you mentioned that you had to let some of your people go. How much of, in terms of your total workforce, how much did you lose in that exercise? 10%, 20%, half?
Not that badly. About 15. You were right the first time, 10, 20. So only about 15%. Well, we managed to recover quickly, and we restructured, and also now we're expanding. So we sold off some assets, and we're acquiring some new ones. So it's just a matter of refocusing our efforts. In fact, the COVID is actually a good call to action for more focus efforts into the sectors that we're good at, into the things that we're good at. Another important note is where even 5-star hotels, they used to have the manpower, the staff to guest ratio, staff to room ratio, for example, of let's say 1.7. Even around the world now, there's been talk that can you reduce that down to 1.4? Can you reduce it down to 1.1? And can you adopt technology to replace some of those functions? But of course, the functions you don't want to replace is the face-to-face interaction. That's the most beautiful part of travel, right? So we keep that, but we somehow modernize the other parts.
Okay. Let me turn now to leadership reflections. How leadership perspectives have shifted during the pandemic. And I will begin with Bolen on how his perspectives of leadership have changed as a result of his actions as a leader in the pandemic. And then I'll turn to Isa on the same question. So Bolen.
Thank you, Andrew. To me, I mean, we think more strategically. We need to be more agile. And above all, during this pandemic for 2 years, I believe that for me and maybe perhaps all other leaders, company, corporate, that we think about the employees' health and well-being, and that is the priority during the pandemic. So while we try to stabilize the business, but also we need to take care of our employees' health, safety, and also their economic living, standard living. Of course, like Gavin said, education, Amy, you experience the same. That very impacted, severely impacted. That we never imagined the school could close for nearly 2 years. We just resumed. So I have 1,300 teachers and staff, and imagine how hard it is. But we try to manage. We put our people first still, even though some we need to let go around 20-30% people staying at home. We gave them some allowance. We even have emergency fund, emergency food, and all the things that try to make sure that our staff and teachers, they can still survive. Have food to eat, even though they don't work anymore. And that is something that we put first thing first on that, and that is, I would say, the more leadership during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we just try to make sure that we have good leadership in work environment at home, and also they can feed their family. But during the pandemic, we went deep down in detail into their family, make sure that, okay, because a group of family that they have brother, sister, wife, husband, they work in different places. Imagine if the husband worked in education and the wife worked in hotel, hospitality. They both were affected. And that's why we really even care more, than before. So this is something that I would say the leadership shift from a corporate leader to like a father of a big family, and that is to me. Yep.
Yes, I'd like to touch on qualities like that in the latter part of a discussion, and I know that we should be coming up in time for questions soon by our two facilitators. But before we get into the Q&A or possibly another question, Isa, what can you share your thoughts as well on how your leadership perspective has shifted or changed as a result of the pandemic?
Absolutely. So I actually share similar points of views to the other three panelists. The leadership previously, again, as Bolen was saying, used to be run a smooth sailing ship, generate revenue, make sure not to rock the boat too much. But I think that the pandemic rather has shown us that that's not good enough anymore. A leader needs to be really aware about his own staff, about what happens within his premises, and really fine level of detail on the resources that he has, so he can really make a change, and not just because of the pandemic, but also an active change to the well-being, the capability, or even how to strategize there. For Gavin, yourself would be in hospitality, your structure, and use that, how to use it separately. I think sort of the much more leadership really looking forward is a much more proactive role than what is traditionally viewed as more of a reporting role, making sure, as I said, not to rock the ship too much. So I think in my experience as well, we've seen similar situations where really we have the shift from someone who's looking at profitability all the time, and then during the pandemic, working with some of my own clients at the time, I start to understand and I start to memorize the names of each and every individual staff, and their individual issues, which ones can take the hit, which ones can't, and how do we support them. In fact, it came to such a level where I actually knew the names of our customers, because some of them we were issuing out temporary laptops to, because unfortunately they were not well-to-do. So they had to, you required additional support. Some of them were not used to the online system, so we needed to provide them education, even free sessions, to get used to that. And I think that level of innovative thinking and thinking on your feet, while we experienced during the pandemic, I would really think, and I would really love for leaders of the, past this point, to be really thinking about things like that, where they really pay more attention to the finer details of their business and the finer details of each of their stakeholders.
So up to this point, there are a few underlying common threads that have been shared by our panel. One is agility, the ability to pivot when you see a challenge and develop a solution in response to the challenge. Second is empathy, paying more attention to your people and to your customers. Third is communication. Communicate how things are so that your customers, stakeholders will understand. So let's now see if we have any questions or comments. And I understand Fadli and Isa are to help with the process.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
I can hear you.
All right, hi, good morning, good afternoon. Andrew, nice to meet you again, ladies and gentlemen, panelists. So we do have a couple of questions here. My name is Fadli, and on my left is?
My name is Isa. Hello, everyone.
So I have the first three questions. I think I can shoot three questions here, yeah, Andrew?
Yep, please read them out for us.
So we did have an initial question in the first session, but I'm just going to rephrase it a bit here. So how does leadership look like, especially with layoffs and making difficult decisions? So I think there's a second question kind of coming from that. I think there was a note from YB Yanti's earlier speech about the concept of mushawara. So how does mind transformation look like for leadership? So are there changes in leadership that you are taking in this context of the pandemic? And one last question.
Sorry, sorry, can you repeat that next question, please? The last question.
The last question is,
the one that you just read out.
Okay. The second question is on mind transformation. But what kind of leadership styles that have shifted in your over the pandemic? And the last one that I just wanted to share is just leadership in the context of mental health well-being. So connecting back to the first question, we're looking at laying off different employees and whatnot. How can we ensure their well-being is also being taken care of along the way? Thank you, Andrew. That's it from me.
Okay. Thank you, Fadli. So on the question of leadership amidst layoffs and downsizing, I will turn to Gavin for this. And maybe Bolen, you also have some experience there. So I'll turn to both of you for that question. In terms of the mental health and well-being, I will direct that question both to Emmy and Isa. And there was a question about mind transformation. I think this is a shift in paradigms, but we cover that. So if I may focus on those two questions first. And then after this round of discussion, we will move into leadership in the new normal. So Gavin and Bolen on the question of leadership at the time of downsizing. Isa and Emmy on the question of mental health and well-being. So Bolen, this time, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Andrew, again. Yes, it was quite hard, the decision, I would say, not only for me, but for all of us when we're coming to layoff and downsizing. But for us, we did not go till, like layoff, but we tried to only reuse the some reduction of the employee salary, 20-30%, and so that they can continue to work, and then they take turn shift They don't need to come to work like full day. They can work half day. They can work like 2 or 3 days a week because education school closed. So we provide online learning and blended learning, and also some staff. Sometimes they did not have a role to play anymore at school. Let's say, for example, for those who operate school, you may know they work in canteen, they work in cafe. So how can they come do online? So but we did not lay off them as well. We just put them staying at home, and then give them some allowance, and also we create with what we call emergency fund in case that they need more extra food and their family may need. So our HR department is working on that we call pandemic emergency fund for those who to fit the whole family, like I just mentioned. Not only one or two of our teachers and staff, but also their family members were also affected from other industry. And also we try to give them some new jobs. Let's say, for example, it looked a bit weird or funny. They used to work in canteen, but then I convert, I asked them to work on field, on farming. Also take time for them to reskill themselves. They went to farm and they grow vegetables, for example. It looked funny, but at least they got some kind, like they have a chance to develop new skill. They can also came to meet their friends with a social distance, of course, and then they could earn some extra income. And that's the way they do. A bit far from what they used to do, but at least they can have jobs. So that's what we're doing. And also we have a pandemic response team, so that in any case that happen to them, and then we have our own quarantine room place. We have our own, and the last time recently we also have some kind like COVID-19 treatment center, for example. So we try to offer our best help to them. Yep.
Actually, reskilling is a subject that we might be able to touch on a little bit more later. But Gavin, go ahead.
I want to leave us time to touch on that. So for me, just three things to echo what Bolin said. New jobs definitely. So from hotels to foods to other things, we try to, as much as possible, to give people new jobs. And we mentioned before, we took pay cuts. Everybody took pay cuts so that we don't have to cut people. Everybody helps. And then last point is we as owners, we take some losses as well to maintain the business. We keep the business going and minimize the closure. I'll leave it at that for time being.
Okay, let's turn to the question on mental health and well-being. Certainly a very big topic as well. How do we as leaders deal with the pressures of working from home, for example, and other challenges brought on by the pandemic? Amy, I'll give it to you first.
During the COVID, everyone in my team very like a burning fire, worried a lot about their family, their loved one, and some of them was infected with COVID and went to isolation, and some people was lost their family, they lost their loved ones. So much of the damage, and very painful for this day. You know that everyone have a situation of up and down. Even the leader, like personally for myself, I also have a lot of worry. During the lockdown in 2020, the first wave of the COVID in Vietnam, our revenue is decreasing. To 10% of the normal, the usual revenue. So and we had to survive and protect the business and protect our people. So at that time, like the leader team in my team, we even lost lead as well. But thanks for the teams, and also the culture, our corporate culture, that people says a lot. We stay together closer and say more about daily life, and also like I think the spirit of adapt with change is also very important to our company. And I think one of to take care more about the team. We do a lot of activity, like every day we have a section for people to connect with each other, online meeting, some culture activity like online karaoke, something like that, and for like to protect for the well-being of people in the employee. So I haven't decided to cut off the team yet. I mean, we don't decide in that way, but we share with people, and to make sure that everyone have the jobs to do and have some have earning for their life and for their family, because every day we read a lot of like online news about people don't have food. So in our company, we haven't cut off the team and focusing on improving, firstly scale down with the operation and save the cost, but then scale up with the online business. So it's like people have jobs and people have incomes to live for this day. Yeah.
Okay, so you had as part of the programs arranged for keeping the team connected through your various digital platforms and giving them that flexibility. Isa, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'll draw on some, as before, experience from my previous role, but we did exactly similar things to what Emma was doing in Vietnam. We actually organized every day. We would have sort of before classes would start and all that, we would have catch-up sessions where the teachers could talk about whatever issues that they had, and what their concerns were during the lockdowns, and all those things and that really benefited, because my old client was able to generate a very strong relationship between the staff, and they became their own family within that business. And luckily, my client and I, through strategizing, we were able to keep everyone on board. We didn't need to let anyone go. And we were able to create alternative products that our customers were able to subscribe to. Therefore, we didn't need to even think about that sort of situation. We also, and as well, I think the leadership team really put themselves out there. Every month, we would have sort of a scrutinizing session, to put it lightly, where the staff could scrutinize the leadership, because they needed to understand that we had their backs. And I think that's sort of helped them, and through that communication, helped them through that process.
Yeah. Okay. We'll come back to more on the mental health matter next time. But for now, I'd like to turn to now leadership in the new normal. And Fadli and Isa, if there are any more questions, maybe you can just turn on your cams as a signal to me, and then I will turn to you to read out those questions. But for now, let's turn to leadership in the new normal. So the new normal, as we know, are the new processes, new strategies, even new culture that will come as a result of the changes and challenges brought about by the pandemic. So the one quick question here that I'd like to pose to our panel is how we as businesses should prepare for this new normal. And in particular, reflecting on the lessons from the pandemic and reimagining leadership in this new normal, what are some of the personal qualities that we need more of, and maybe what are the qualities that we need less of going forward at this time? So let me start with that. Again, one basic question for the four of you. Maybe we'll begin with you, Isa, and then Bolen, and then Gavin, and then Emmy, on how you think businesses should prepare, or how leaders in particular should prepare their businesses for this new normal.
Sure. My perspective on this is, I think leaders need to be, and I think the term we've used, I think even the earlier session, was agile. We need to be prepared that our business model will change. Business models never stay the same. they're ever evolving, and we see, and that's normal and typical rather. But we see that in a normal situation because economic changes change all the time with change of preferences, change of government. There are many other externalities, which means that your businesses needs to change. So I think that leaders, especially through this experience, need to be aware that whatever they're doing today may not be applicable in 2 to 3 years' time, and therefore need to be constantly proactive about how they think about their business and how they can tweak their business model slightly, or at least plan to tweak your business model slightly. The plans will never be perfect. You will never find a perfect plan for tomorrow, but to the very least, you've already set up a certain set of procedures which could be applicable should a situation arise.
Okay, Bolen? Agility for ISA.
For me, still, we need to work more on working more, the whole team, with us on innovation, creativity, and also professional development, capacity building. Because again, I mean, we all will talk about the business model, and that will really need to work on that. And for me, I will among all the business models, components. We may need to work on the channels of delivery, of the communication, how the sales channel, I would say in the marketing term. Let's say, for example, for us as education, even though the pandemic may slow down, I would say, or may end. Hesitated to say end, but we can live with it. But then we will not come back to the traditional classroom anymore. It will be like blended learning. So. And also that is opportunity that for us, not only me, I believe that Amy may also think about expanding our education services overseas. Before, we can also provide education services only in Cambodia, but now for me, I'm thinking of provide the Khmer culture, literature, education to Cambodian kids overseas, for example, with all the technology that we have in place now. So the model of delivery of the products or the services, and that's something that we need to work on through our creativity and innovation and capacity building for the employees and teachers. Yep.
Okay. Over to you, Gavin. So for Bolen, innovation, creativity, and capacity building.
Yep.
Gavin?
For me, the qualities of the leaders doesn't change as much as the style, right? So I want to echo what Isa said about agility and what Bolen said again about focusing on innovation. But those are the style, right? So the qualities of the leaders, the empathy, and everything that we spoke about, I think they still hold. Those are the things that don't change. But the style, for one example. In my industry, people want to work from home now more, and whereas we used to pride ourselves on low turnover, for example, we're starting to think sometimes turnover is good. A higher amount of turnover is good because we need people to be reskilled, as you said before, and they might want to move around. People are a little bit more mobile now in different industries, and so there's all kinds of new elements come into play, and we're changing our mentality about our staff. Just one example, for example, my dad and I had this conversation. We're hiring a GM, and we're looking at different CVs of different GM for new hotels. And Dad likes the guy who's been at this hotel for 20 years. And because he likes the loyalty, for example, and for the rest of the team, including myself, we're like, no, he's been around for 20 years. He's got nothing new to say. He's compared to another guy who's kind of 3 years here, 3 years there, different experience can bring back something new. So that's the kind of conversations we're having now within our team, and I think that's not so much a change of quality, but a change of a style of leadership. We still hold resilience and empathy and teamwork and all those things close to our hearts, but we move a lot faster now, and we make more daring move. I think is the way forward.
All right. So would you say, as advice to the businesses here listening to this session, that in terms of preparing for the next normal, speed should be one of those considerations? You mentioned you need to move fast, and you need to be agile. You reflected what Isa mentioned, and you've also mentioned a certain receptiveness to different perspectives. So if, for example, the ways of old were strongly practiced many years ago, today there has been a change in terms of how experience is viewed, for example, and there's more receptiveness to different kinds of talents coming in to the organization as a way of preparing the business
Yes.
in the next few years ahead.
One more thing I forgot to mention, actually, with innovation, the way we do it, this is not an advice. Different companies do it differently, but the way we do it, we can't do it with an old team. Some members from the old team can move forward with more innovative ideas and innovative products. But if you really want to be truly innovating, we believe we need some new mindsets, some new people in the company, and we tend to set up different companies within the company, and then we move people around a little bit just to have the old people experience the new company, so that new people are not too kind of doing their own thing and not caring about the old, but the old also gets to experience some new mindsets and new teams, and get them kind of out of their comfort zone a little bit. Otherwise, we cannot really truly innovate. That's what we believe.
Emmy, your thoughts on how businesses should prepare for the new normal?
Yeah, I totally agree with Gavin. I think that the fundamental quality of the leadership will not be changed, but maybe we think more about, like, for example, the embrace the diversity, because right now everything is very uncertain, and we need more like talent to join and improve and help us to improve the business together. So I think different minds will are better than like more the same, right? So we could encourage the experience, the diversify experience or generation and different opinion, so that we could leverage on the talents as well, right? So what from whatever they are or their perspective. So this will help to create the innovation environment inside the company as well. And I think maybe we also need the less of before we talk about very big picture in the future and very blame driven, but now I think it's more about the purpose driven. So everything changed. So even we design the business plan early in the year, but now everything changed. So the plans seem not very relevant. So I think right now it's more for purpose driven when we run the business.
Okay, I have a question that relates to women leaders, and I'm sure there are many women entrepreneurs here in the audience today. And I suppose this question is very fitting to you. You know, during the pandemic, and even as we go forward into the new normal, there has been the question of women leaders and whether there are any special qualities that women leaders have in terms of handling, for example, a crisis and taking the businesses forward. So we can just look at leadership, for example, New Zealand, Germany. The leaders of those nations basically were seen to be leaders who've basically handled their economies quite well. But taking this into a business perspective, as a woman leader here in this panel, and certainly anyone in the panel is free to comment, but I wanted to ask Emmy, in terms of women leadership, can you can you share for our women leaders in the audience in particular, how you feel women leaders are equipped to, or do they have any special leadership qualities to take the businesses forward?
Yeah, very interesting question. So
which I'm sure you have been receiving occasionally in the past.
Yeah. So I think so women leadership is also, firstly, is a leadership, right? But for women, especially in my industry, technology industry, I see that like even for our current education business, like 87 of my student is boy, only 30% of our student is girl, and I think that women and girls haven't prepared enough yet for the change of this world today, and also the digital world in the future as well, beyond of the robot and AI. So I think women, as a woman leadership, I always like give advice about like prepare much more on innovations and technology when we run the business. Yeah, that is one of the most critical today for all of us to keep going.
Yes. There's one thing that I want to introduce into this discussion is a strategy, if you will, that leaders, I think, feel leaders are seriously considering moving forward, is the subject of sustainability. So as we know from the pandemic, there has been increased priority on sustainability issues. And I wanted to get your thoughts on whether this should be a key strategy to focus on for the many businesses in the audience. So let's do the reverse. Emmy first, and then Gavin. And maybe I'll pose a different question to Bolen and Isa.
Yeah, excuse me.
Your thoughts on sustainability as one of the strategies for businesses going forward.
I think today's is it's very uncertain. So we have to prepare for that and to be have the business grow sustainable. I think we have to transform our business, and to us, transform business is mean about like becoming the technology, more about becoming the technology organizations, repositioning our business, and that guide us in our daily operation. We have to focus on embracing automation as well in our business, and ready to change to everyone and prepare for that, and focusing on training. Yeah.
Yeah, so Gavin, this must be a big thing for you as well in the hospitality and tourism industry.
Absolutely. The foundations of our family business is actually in agriculture, and with that, we have always been focusing on sustainability. Zero carbon emission. We produce more oxygen than zero waste, conversion of water. But it's not just that part of sustainability, but also people. Because my family is Chinese immigrant to Thailand, so we feel that we have to give back to society quite a lot to make sure that we don't get kicked out. So so sustainability has always been part of the strategy for 70 years now. It's ingrained, and we it was part of us before we even know what CSR means. Yeah. So yeah. So now that the world becomes green. And the trend for sustainability is accelerated 10 years forward because of COVID. We're quite ready for it, and we're happy that the world has become that way. Yeah.
So for Bolen and Isa, we've discussed a number of leadership qualities here in our discussion today, but the one thing I noticed that we haven't touched on is vulnerability. Of our vulnerability as leaders. So previously, I think before the pandemic, in the pandemic, we basically made things up as we went along. There was no roadmap, no playbook, making things up as we went along. Previously to the pandemic, if you were a leader, you had to be seen as somebody strong, determined. You'd know what to do. Even in uncertain, volatile situations, you'd know what to do. At the time of the pandemic, quite frankly, a number of leaders did not know what to do. And yet, many of us, for the most part, at least as leaders in organizations, the quality of vulnerability, having to realize and accept that we don't know things. Somehow, we had a hard time coming to that point. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on the leaders being vulnerable, admitting that they don't know things. And there are some in the team who might know. And this, in effect, has basically shrunk the hierarchical structure, I think, of many organizations. But I wanted to turn to you both, Bolen and Isa, on your thoughts about vulnerability as a quality of leaders of the future. Bolen, you first.
Yes, Andrew. Of course, during these 2 years, let's say the first 1 year, because the pandemic lasted around, let's say, until now 2 years, and the last year, 1 year, it seemed like we were a bit clearer, what should be done. But in the first year of the pandemic, and then we were all confused, I would say. So instead of having like a 5-year strategy plan, 10-year strategy plan, it comes to like monthly plan, monthly plan, and that is something that one small step at a time. Why I say 1 month plan? Because every month I and the management team always look at the financial report, look at the daily revenue, look at the daily and monthly expenses. So because we did not know what's going to happen next, like let's say for example in Cambodia, I think maybe also in same other country, the pandemic happened. The school closure was in March 2020, and then we all believe that it would be only 1 month, and then it could be over. After Khmer New Year, we all assumed that it was only, let's say, 1 month. But later on, we could not resume the school after the Khmer New Year holiday. So then we realized that we didn't know, when it came to an end, or it could be manageable. But that's why month by month management, I would say, a monthly basis management, and then what we need to put first thing first on a very basic, very basic of the company. First of all is the company, the employees, the employees work, jobs. We need to secure first, because they have family to feed, and also we have what we call emergency plan. And let's say, for example, in practical to my company, we have 20 campuses. We have a backup emergency plan. Let's say we assume until that one day we have only 1 or 2 campuses. What could we manage, to do? So it seems like an emergency contingency plan, not a plan, but like scenarios. The best plan, the medium plan, and also the worst plan. We assume that what happened if we could not maintain the 1,300 employees, and then what if we could have only 300 employees, for example? What if we can just have only 20% or 30% left of the employee, instead of having 20 buildings, and then we just could only maintain only, let's say, 2 or 3, for example? How could we still continue our education? We did not think that we would lose the business, but just only how we can scale it down. So this is what we been working on for the last 2 years.
Isa?
Yeah, so I guess in terms of being vulnerable, I think this comes to the relationship that you have with your stakeholders. I think this is where, again, now we're going back to empathy and all those leadership values. To understand what your stakeholders want, you kind of need to ask, because sometimes as leaders we always sit on this high pedestal, right? That we see things from above, big picture, as Em was saying before, but we lose focus about what's going on the ground. And I think in my previous example of we are literally conversations with each staff and even to the customer level of what they want, becomes really, really to the forefront. And we could ask that because we had that relationship and we have built that rapport with our stakeholders. And I think that is something, again, you're right, it's very new. Historically, leaders are seen as this person who could make that perspective. Sorry, I think M wants to add in here.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think in volatility, so during the COVID, so the level of uncertainty is increasing, right? And the risk make all of us make decision is harder. But as a leader, we had to make the decision, and to make the decision, I think we should involve more people into our decision and make critical small choice. That I totally agree to Bolin. So I think we should clarify the decision that we want to make, and with other people, involve them into that, and identify a small number of decision maker only. So I and also make people have an option to raise their voice as well.
Correct. And I do think that's, of course, collecting data by asking is one way. The other way, we can always rely on data. I think that's something, digitization, I think, is an important move that we see during this period. And I think, that helps us inform rather the decision makings that we need to make, because we are not omnipotent. So, we need to, I think more or less, not so much vulnerability per se, but more onto the rapport and relationship. I think that really opens up the doors as a leader.
Yeah. I'd like to change gears a bit in terms of the structural changes in the businesses that you feel will be permanent going forward in this new normal. So certainly, as a result of the pandemic and the measures that you put in place, there have been some changes in the business. Emmy, for example, and Bolin, you've gone virtual. Gavin, you've put in place some measures as well. Nisa, the bank, I know, has certain measures. So going forward, what do you feel are these changes that are going to be permanent? And what priorities are you going to focus on? So Emmy first, and then Gavin.
So I think we are the business environment is now very uncertain. So to us, I think our priority that is being alive until end of this thing, and the core of the business we not change, but we will transform to adapt with the new situation. So of course, with the change of the new situation, we also have to set the business manage it and measure the business. I think it's not like fully traditional measure or like KPI sets. Instead of that, we will combine the old and the new measure to align with the new change of the business model. For example, like before, when we run the offline business, we all talk about like the revenue of exchangers, the new enrollment of the student, or the retention of the customer. But now we are talking more about like how our online business going, what is the traffic of the website, how our customer engage to the platform, and how to convert, and the conversion rate of the traffic of the website as well.
Interesting. Gavin, your priorities going forward, and how much of the changes you feel will be permanent?
Absolutely. Changes how much? The priorities first. Then the priorities would be building a new culture, not a new culture, but transform the culture. Let's put it that way. Towards something that is more risk taking, more agile, and that probably requires a lot of help from people who are able to has done this before. Culture and people will be the things I focus on internally, but externally, we're really accelerating towards formulating new strategies, new investments portfolio, that new ways to build our ecosystem that maybe takes advantage of this opportunity. It's the greatest opportunity that we have now with COVID to do something new, to change, and to look forward a little bit and to catch a new trend, right? Somebody was saying, when there's a huge thunderstorm like this, you don't build walls to just insulate yourself. You build a windmill, right? To really power your business forward. So what would be, where is the wind blowing? We want to really catch that trend. So we really need to be in a mindset of moving, being able to move forward to that end. And for me, I think it's for my particular company, that opportunity would come in an intersection between high tech and high touch. We have a lot of high touch people, and high touch mentality. So we need to kind of introduce high tech now, and integrate that into our whole the way we do things. That's what I think. Thank you.
Okay. How much of what aspects do you feel will be permanent going forward in your industries?
Lower head counts, absolutely. For hospitality, I have so many industries, right? Let's focus on hospitality because we're here. Definitely lower head counts, increased use of technology for sure. Things like you can use your phone now to check in and walk up to your door and just kind of open the door instantly. I mean, those things would be, the technology has been around for 20 years, so we need to just use it, right? But the things that don't change is the face-to-face, that part of travel, and the excitement of the experience. Maybe something that we need to focus more is that will become more permanent. Is creating an experience that's unique, and not just a copy and paste of everything else. So unique experience for hospitality as well.
Okay. Let me turn to Bolen for the same question. Your priorities going forward as a leader, and touching on what you feel, what aspects of your business you feel will be permanent.
Anyway, the aspect that would be permanent is both the management, employees, teachers, and staff need to keep learning, and also I also advise them, for employees, they need to enjoy and expect, the rise and falls as well as the ride, even though sometimes it's hurricane ride, but that's a life. So that's what I need to learn to accept and adapt, and do not expect all the best in life, and then learn to survive. Especially in ASEAN, in Cambodia, for example, you have a lot of backup plan in your life. Turn back to nature, for example. Do not really depend on just one line of income, for example. They say, for example, those who are in the cities, they suffer the most during this pandemic. But those who are in the countryside, they have some land so that they can still do some farming and raise chickens and fish, for example. They need to learn and believe in the nature more, and also believe in the love and friendship, strategic alliance. That's what I'm seeing, both personally and in business. Teamwork, strategic alliance, that we can depend one another. Do not go on, let's say, competitions, and that will kill one another. Like this pandemic, all the business really depending on one another, so much. Yep.
Okay. Isa?
Yeah, and I think I think what will be permanent now is that the extra emphasis on your stakeholders, your customers. Again, as I was saying before, who your employees are, making sure that they're all well taken care of. Because I mean, if they're happy, then they can operate at the highest level. You can expect them to operate at the highest level. And I think industry-wise, I think obviously digitalization, and I think we're doing that at the bank as well. We're trying to really move everyone to not come in so often, to the bank. We can solve your problems online, and trying to really enter that space so that you don't need to waste time in queue. You can spend more, enjoy your life a little bit more, spend time with your family, run your businesses, and we just support you from the background. I think that's something rather from online. I think that's something that's here to stay.
And your priorities as a leader?
Definitely, to make sure I understand and build more rapport with my customer base and my team, and I think even all my stakeholders, because then I can deliver the best product for them and understand the concerns and make sure I satisfy their needs.
Okay, we have I think a few more minutes, but I'd like to turn to Fadli and Isa to see if there are any more questions or comments from the floor that they'd like to share.
Hi. Hello, Mr. Andrew, and everyone else. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yes, we do have another 3 questions. So one is, what does a good leadership look like? Maybe that have been mentioned by Mr. Isa just now in terms of customer service. How do you make a good decision making, dealing especially in a difficult situation? Second, Mr. Gavin mentions about reskilling. What kind of skill that we need to improve or reskill to become a good leader? And third, in the terms of business people management as an employer, how would you ensure your employees is being taken care of? Yeah, that's the 3 questions.
Okay, let me just, before you go, Isa, let me just see if I got that right. So the first question was about leadership and decision making. How would you how would you go about it? And the second question was with regards to the reskilling, the subject of reskilling. And the third question was on the subject of how would you ensure that your people are well taken care of, or employee experience. Okay, so in terms of, let's go through these questions rather quickly, because I understand we are running short of time. In terms of decision making, in as brief as you can, I'll direct this to Bolen. In terms of the reskilling, maybe Gavin, you could take that. At ensuring well-being of people, the employee experience, maybe Gavin and Emmy. So very quick responses.
Yeah, actually reskilling and upskilling is something not so new actually. We've been talking about it since a long time, many years ago already, but I think the pandemic that shows us that people need to not only diversify the business, but also the skills. So I would say still, like people keep repeating, saying it's touch-based, and especially those who are in the career with repeating, repeated job, repeated skills, routines, and that need to be careful and will be quite taken by the touch-based. But for those who can reskill yourself with for example, communication, creativity, imagination, that will stay competitive. And that's what I'm saying. So it's not about like a hard skill, but it's more about more on what people call like soft skills, especially
soft skills.
Creativity, innovation. Yep.
Focus on the soft skills and more diversify your skill set. Gavin, yes, quick response.
Absolutely agree with Bolen. So I'm not going to touch on that again. But the person asking the question also asked about leadership skills going forward. So for my thing, I went to relearn things about outward mind, servant leadership, agile workforce, and role transformation. Those four I'm learning right now, just to kind of refresh for new things for the new world. Thank you.
Very good. Isa and Emmy, quick thoughts on employee experience, or in other words, taking care of your people.
Yeah, I think we focus on the people and training to help them prepare better for these difficult times and dealing with the uncertainty and volatility. And I think as a leader, we also have to be very similar to the team about the difficulty that we are facing today. We have to prepare for today's and prepare best for tomorrow. Yeah, so I will focus on training and similarity to the team.
Isa?
Yeah, my comments would be understanding their needs and, if they, and what they want out of their career and what they want out of, under your leadership, and build a path for them to understand that and build a path so they can develop themselves and grow with you as a leader.
Okay, we are just about the end of the session. And so, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, we have touched on a number of points here in this discussion today. Leadership is certainly a very broad topic. And in as much as we want to continue and dive a little bit deeper, we will probably have to hold that off for the next session. But in parting, I'd like to invite each of the four panelists for their key takeaway. And the question is that if you had one piece of advice to give to our entrepreneurs here and our audience here in the audience today, one piece of advice about how they could become a better leader. In other words, how can they reimagine themselves as leaders in the new normal? What would your advice be to that young leader? So first, maybe we'll go Emmy first, Gavin, Bolen, and Isa, you'll have the last word.
So my advice is to focus on the team. And I think the team is extremely important. No matter how we use the advanced technology, I think it cannot replace the people and cannot replace the spirit and the teams. So I think at the end, the success is come from the people. So focus on the team.
Gavin?
For me, it would be, yes, to be relentless in creating the right culture.
All right, very quick. Bolen?
For me, we must, all of us, appreciate the moment we have, especially with our loved ones. And everything we do, we must live a good legacy.
Appreciate the moment. Okay, Isa?
Mine would be have a clear set of ideas of what you would like to achieve, but be adventurous and aggressive about how you want to achieve it.
A clear vision and a clear goal and a path towards it. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed this topic on leadership. We apologize if there were any questions that we were not able to address given the limitations on time, but we hope you have picked up a number of important points here at this discussion today. And I'd like to thank each of the panelists, Emmy Dao, Gavin Solkit, Pek Polen, and Isa Liu. Thank you so much for your time here today on behalf of the organizers, and we wish you all the very best in your endeavors going forward. And to all in the audience, thank you for your presence, thank you for your participation, and all the best as well to you. Thank you so much, and this has been the topic of leadership, reimagining leadership in the age of the new normal. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.